Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted to welcome an accomplished and respected professional from California, USA, Mr. Reuven Shelef. Reuven, welcome to the show.
Hi. Hi, to Ashutosh. Nice being here. Thank you for having me on the show.
Thank you. Thank you. Reuven is the founder and CEO of Out of the Box Consulting. He is a strategic engineer with a coach's heart, renowned for his groundbreaking Untangling Complex Challenges methodology. So, Reuven, before we start talking about Out of the Box Consulting, a few questions for you. What inspired you to start Out of the Box Consulting, and how did your journey lead you there?
I had no intentions on starting a management consulting company.
Mm-hmm.
I worked as an engineer in technology companies, both
Mm-hmm.
startups and larger corporations, usually through acquisitions.
Mm-hmm.
I started from engineering,
Mm-hmm.
hardware engineering, and from the very first project, I was interested in the bigger picture. Why are
Mm-hmm.
we developing this product? Who are the customers? Let's go visit them, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing led to another in the projects that I did, that I started focusing more and more on the cross-functional aspects of things.
Mm-hmm.
So mainly I started seeing that the biggest challenges that we have in my projects and in others around me are areas between the functions.
Mm-hmm.
So I got interested in that as a young engineer. And as I moved between roles and companies, I focused more and more on identifying where things go wrong
Mm-hmm.
and teaching people how to fix things that will go wrong, but more importantly, avoid things going wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And and then I simply gained a lot of experience in different areas of business, that when I moved to California and thought I'll just get another job, a friend from 3Com Days back in the day told me, I need you here to help me with some business processes and information systems around service and support.
Mm-hmm.
And that was after I did an implementation of Oracle for service and support. So I had some CRM in my blood, so to speak. And I found myself in a consulting position that it was supposed to be 3 months, a contract, and it was just my first job in the Silicon Valley, or first contract. And I fell in love with the concept of being an outsider who comes in, shares his wisdom, and cuts through the chase, no political agenda or
Mm-hmm.
anything like that. And I found that the impact of my contribution was multiplied by me being a consultant, and that's the path that I kept on going
Fascinating.
through. So yeah, so that's
Fascinating.
how I found
Thank
myself
you.
in the business of management consulting.
Thank you. And when did you first realize that untangling complex challenges was more than a process? It was a philosophy.
Just as I was starting my management consulting practice, which was
Mm-hmm.
about 22 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
at the same time, call it the California air or the people around me, I embarked on a journey of personal growth and development.
Mm-hmm.
That too was not planned. I found myself in that journey, and the disciplines of meditation, which were foreign to me before, and somatics and spirituality, me looking at myself or experiencing myself as a spiritual being, all that happened to a great extent in the first years of my management consulting practice. And what I found is that I'm nurturing my professional world with what I'm learning and experiencing in my personal journey, and vice versa. So I brought to my work with people, I brought disciplines that are very common in the areas of engineering and business and technology.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that alchemy basically I was creating a methodology. It took me about 10 years to understand that I'm
Mm,
developing a methodology, or 8 years.
mm,
And
mm,
then about 15 years ago, I coined it as a methodology. I documented some of it, and I trademarked it. So
mm.
it's a
Very interesting.
uh,
Very interesting. And how would you
registered trademark.
describe the essence of untangling complex challenges to someone hearing it for the first time?
Yeah, many people when I tell them untangling complex challenges, they said, "Oh, that is complex. You
Mm,
need to
mm.
untangle that already."
Correct.
The the simplest way that I like putting it is when you know what the problem you're facing is, I am not required. There
Mm,
are many experts in every domain
mm,
that you can find the best expert in a specific to solve a specific problem that you identify. However, when the problem is not identifiable, when you thought it's this symptom or that problem and you tried fixing that and apparently, well, that wasn't the problem, or you tried several times and you didn't move the needle much.
mm,
In those places where you feel stuck, that's where it's worthwhile talking to me.
mm,
As I have the ability, and the methodology is the manifestation of it, to identify what's actually running the show and help you or whoever is experiencing the complex challenges to basically create clarity from a situation of mess, entanglement, being stuck, to create clarity in a way that you see things differently and you are able to move forward in the direction of your choice
mm,
with power and excitement.
mm. But tell me, why do you think complexity is so paralyzing for individuals and organizations today?
Well, today, the key word is today. If we would
Mm,
have this conversation 20 years ago, I would have a different answer.
yeah.
But today, from what I see, the biggest impact is the lack of attention span, is the short attention span
Mm,
that most people have currently. And depending on the age group, the current the majority of the workforce, the younger population, I see also a lack of skill in diving deeper
mm,
to excavate root causes.
mm,
There are so many shiny objects out there, solutions.
mm.
And now with generative AI, everyone can create their own everything.
Correct.
Uh, so people jump now more than ever. People jump to solving way before they understand what the problem actually is.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well said. Reuven, tell me, what role does empathy and vulnerability play in untangling complex challenges?
Hmm. That's a very deep question.
Mm,
It's it is that place of combining those worlds
mm,
of being human
mm,
and dealing with matter
mm,
as an engineer, for
mm.
example.
Yeah.
The, you know, sometimes we deal with truly technical scientific matters.
Mhm,
Most times the challenges reside in the world of people.
mm,
So for that majority part, if we don't have empathy, how could we deal
mm,
with the people involved? So
mm.
most people, when they come together to work on something, the egos are at play, the persona is at play, they have so many concerns about looking good
Mm,
that rarely they forge the relationships needed in order to actually move forward as a group, as a team, with a common goal. So
Mm,
these aspects of being human are so critical. As in, the way I think of it, and I also coach my clients, is to look at every relationship that they have,
mm,
whether personal or professional, whether it's with their direct reports or with their manager
mm,
or upper management. Look at each and every relationship you have as if it's your most intimate relationship that is most important for you in your lifetime.
mm.
Could be with your
Yeah.
spouse, with your child, with your parent.
Mm,
Coming from that place of compassion is required in order to forge healthy and prosperous relationships.
mm.
And most people don't come naturally, I have to say. It's
Yeah.
kind of industry standard.
Mm,
No one teaches you to come to those kinds of conversation to the workplace with your kimono opened and your heart on your sleeve.
absolutely.
And so that's where I believe the intersection
Great response. Great
lies.
response. Great response. Thank you. How can leaders balance logic and intuition when making decisions in uncertain times? What are the common leadership blind spots you encounter in your work?
Some people see the world of decision making
Mm,
as logic. Some see it as um, spiritual. I'm going to the extremes just
yeah,
to make the
yeah.
point.
Mm,
And rarely, even great professors. I was just listening to a program of a Stanford professor talking about it and making a clear line between decisions that need to
mm,
be done logically and those who ought to be done spiritually.
mhm,
And I don't identify with this distinction. I'd rather take the approach of using all the tools in the toolbox
mhm,
and using them in the right time and place. So, for example, there is a place to do all the analysis,
mhm,
apply all the logic required, go and excavate all the details
mhm,
and draw the relationships, the logical relationships and the possible outcomes and do all that logical work. And then, after you obtained all the information needed, all the data needed, then turn to your right brain and meditate, spend some time in nature,
mm.
immerse yourself in hot mineral water if available to you, or take a shower,
Yeah.
a long shower, and let your senses, let your some would say let God, some would say let the universe, some would say listen to the messages you receive from the
Mm,
higher self, whatever that would be, and the language that each one of your listeners uses is
mm.
appropriate to just turn to everything, all the wisdom that is out there
Yeah.
within you and out of
Mm,
you, that is not the logic that you use, not the data that you used. You
mm,
did all that work.
mm.
It's important to do that work, because if you didn't, then it's like building a house on quicksand. So
Correct.
you did all that work, and then you turn to the other dimensions and receive the messages you need in order to take a call. That
Mm,
is, in generally speaking, my approach.
amazing. Amazing. Uh, what distinguishes truly transformative leaders from people who you would term as simply competent?
I think we can use the answer to one of your previous
Correct.
questions
Yeah.
about empathy
Yeah.
and compassion.
Yeah.
That's when I coach managers,
Mhm.
I invite them to create a relationship with their people
Mhm.
so that their leadership
Mhm.
comes from a personal place.
Mhm.
They don't have to be best friends. They don't
Yeah.
have to do Christmas together or Holi, but but they ought to be in the kind of relationship, and it goes also to one of the previous. They ought to be in a relationship where
Mhm.
they can communicate in a way that the leader gets the opportunity to express and practice their leadership
Yeah.
in all dimensions.
Mhm.
So the person receiving the leadership, being led, gets all the benefits, and
Mhm.
so much of the benefit
Mhm.
from a manager, from a leader, is not the material itself.
Mhm.
If it's a company that makes boxes, it's yes, there is a professional aspect of it. But most of the value that the people could get from the leader, in my opinion, is not in the material itself,
Mhm.
is the experience and wisdom that the leader has
Mhm.
because they walked a longer path before.
Correct. Correct. Well said. My next question is, how can leaders create a culture that encourages curiosity and open thinking rather than rigid control?
Hmm. I just read an article about this that concurs with what I've been tracking for
Yeah.
many years.
Mm.
They measured it just in Cliff Notes. They measured effectiveness of teams um, along a few years, and they found a direct correlation between the amount of time that the leader. You imagine a conference
Mhm.
room of a team, doesn't matter the size, where the leader
Mm.
manages it and the people participate. There is a direct correlation between the amount of time that the leader speaks
Mhm.
to uh, ineffectiveness. So the less the leader speaks in
Mhm.
those gatherings, the more effective the team will be.
Amazing.
The If it wasn't clear enough,
Mm.
we need leaders need to invite and enable team members to speak up, and not only the ones who always speak up, but
Mm.
especially encourage the people who are the most quiet in the room
Mm.
to speak up. And
Mm.
it's not as simple as hey Joe, you didn't say anything today, what do you
Mm.
have to say? No,
Mm.
it's the preparation and the cultivation of the team and each team member
Yeah.
to feel safe and comfortable and invited to participate. That's the key.
Amazing. Uh, Moving on now, how do you see the relationship between technology and human behavior evolving in the next few years?
Wow. That I think that's like asking what's the weather now outside. This is the
Yes.
current, here in the Silicon Valley, um, every every day we see a new street that the self-driving cars
Mm.
are riding through,
Yeah.
and another robotics company that is inviting to showcase the new humanoid.
Mm.
So we really feel it in the daily life, and it's on one hand it's exciting, on the other it's frightening.
Hmm.
I'm seeing we're still before the big tsunami,
Correct.
and already I see quality degradation of simple output that people do because they are using the new shiny objects
Mm.
with almost no control. So the machines are taking over,
Mm.
and the humans are at the effect of it. The way I see it, I
Hmm.
tend
Hmm.
to see
Yeah.
the negative things, right?
Yeah.
I tend to see what's going wrong, but Of course, there are many benefits,
Mm.
but that's what I'm seeing currently. I think I'm not a kind of a pessimistic person, but I believe that it will get a lot worse before it will get better.
Well said. Well said. And of course, there are multiple views on this, but I would agree with what you have said today. I have time for two more questions for you, Reuven. Uh, how do you personally untangle your own challenges when life gets complicated?
Well, on one hand, that's the hardest question because it's so personal. On
Yeah,
the other hand, it's the easiest question
correct.
because I went through that, and
Mm.
that was basically how I came up with this
Yeah.
methodology. Was It's what I did
Mm.
apparently
Mm.
when I faced my personal challenges. Um, I used the disciplines that I was used to in my professional life.
Mm.
The That's probably a topic for another show.
Sure.
I
Okay.
will just give you I'll give you the teaser.
Mm-hmm.
It saved my marriage,
Mm-hmm.
uh, where we talked about collecting all the data and then turning to the higher self, etc.
Mm-hmm.
It's exactly what I did. I had to get in touch with the facts, what she wants, what I want,
Mm.
what are the opportunities, what are the fears, what is in the way, what
Mm.
is most important to me,
Mm. Mm.
what is most important to us as a family,
Yeah.
etc., etc. Map all that,
Mm.
do all the logical work,
Mm.
get stuck,
Mm.
see that logic comes, reach brings me to a certain point, and then I'm still stuck,
Mm-hmm.
and then I turned to teachers of mine where I got to experience deep work, and I got the help I needed to crystallize what's most important for me in my lifetime, tying it to my life purpose, to how I want my life to run, and rebuilding who I am, both personally and professionally, in order to handle the challenge in a way that I actually empower myself and my family and not destruct. Is that the word? Destruct the family,
Yeah.
right? Take it
Yeah.
apart. Yeah.
Destroy the family. Oh, yeah. I'm with you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And maybe we'll schedule another conversation on that sometime later. But my last question for you, Rowan, if you could share one piece of advice with young professionals who would be listening and viewing our conversation, these young professionals could be facing complex decisions. What would your advice be?
Develop yourself
Hmm.
as a human being.
Yeah.
Acquire the tools
Mm.
to um, to deal with life as a human being,
Mm.
so you have the capacity to deal with whatever comes your way
Mm.
in an aware state, in a compassionate way with yourself
Mhm.
and with others. Um, Key words are, instead of asking, many people ask themselves, "Am I doing the right thing?"
Mm.
Right or wrong is very difficult
Mm.
to work with. Alternatives could be do the work to discover who you are, what's your purpose in this lifetime.
Mm.
Then measure every decision point or challenge or fork in the road. Look at it, comparing it to who you discovered yourself to be.
Mm.
Measure alignment, and that way you can choose powerfully. I'm choosing my words diligently. Choose and not decide.
Mm.
Choose powerfully
Mm.
the options that are aligned with your true desires and who you really are.
Wow. And on that note, and your amazing advice, develop yourself as a human being. Reuven, thank you so much for speaking to me. It was so fascinating to hear you talk about so many different ways to untangle the complex challenges we face. Uh, a lot of your responses were able to identify a pathway to clarity that I think all of us tend to seek. And we keep looking for this pathway. We keep seeking clarity, but we don't necessarily get it in a hurry. But your thoughts today helped me, and I'm sure it'll help all my viewers and listeners to start thinking out of the box, to start looking at how to untangle all the challenges we face. Thank you again for talking to me, and good luck to you.
Thank you for having me. My pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.